At 11:42 in the morning, while my air fryer serenaded a batch of chicken wings with its steady hum, two men in matching HOA polo shirts crouched under my electric meter pedestal with bolt cutters and what I can only describe as heroic ignorance. One of them whispered to the other in a voice just loud enough for me to hear through my open window. He said 3, then 2, like they were defusing a bomb in an action movie. The sky went white. The bolt cutters spat sparks like a 4th of July raccoon having the worst day of its life. A siren screamed from somewhere deep inside the meter box, loud enough to wake the dead 3 counties over. My porch speaker, which I had recently upgraded as part of my home security system, politely announced in a calm robotic voice that tampering with utility equipment is a felony under state law. The 2 enforcers fell backward into my rosemary hedge like they had just licked a battery, blinking and gasping for air, their arms windmilling as they tried to regain balance. My name is Nolan Pierce. I keep to myself in a place called Birch Ferry, a quiet neighborhood of cul-de-sacs stitched to the county line like a quilt you cannot wash, no matter how much you want to. I write technical manuals for a living, the kind that explain how industrial machinery works to engineers who already know but need documentation for liability purposes. I grill steaks on Saturdays, keep my lawn mowed to exactly 3 inches, and maintain a modest solar battery setup that keeps my freezer running during those brutal summer brownouts we get around here when everyone cranks their air conditioning at once. The system is not flashy, just practical. A few panels on the south-facing roof, a battery bank in the garage, and an automatic transfer switch that kicks in when the grid goes down. I installed it myself after the 3rd brownout killed $200 worth of meat in my deep freezer. Across the greenbelt, maybe 200 yards from my backyard fence, squats the HOA for Aldercrest, a neighboring subdivision with rules about acceptable doormat font sizes, holiday decoration windows, and the precise shade of beige allowed on mailbox posts. Their president, Lorna Whitcomb, is a woman in her mid-50s who treats bylaws like scripture and the rest of us like sinners at a church bake sale. She has perfectly styled blonde hair that does not move in wind, oversized sunglasses that stay on even indoors, and a voice that could cut glass when she gets going. She had been pestering me for months about non-member amenity dues, a fee she invented to charge people like me who live adjacent to but not inside Aldercrest. The fee was supposedly for maintaining the shared greenbelt and the decorative entrance sign. Here is the thing, though. My deed predates Aldercrest by about 15 years, like a dinosaur predates a ring light. I am not part of their HOA. I never was. I never will be. My property was here first. But that minor detail, that tiny issue of actual legal reality, did not seem to register in Lorna's carefully curated world. It all started innocently enough with sticky notes about 8 months ago. The first one appeared on my front door on a Tuesday morning. It said Covenant 12.4, utility facades must be taupe, written in purple gel pen with aggressive underlines. I do not have their covenants, and I certainly do not have taupe. I have gray siding and a black meter pedestal because that is what Rivers County Electric installed. Then came the certified letters, 3 of them in 1 month, about my unauthorized solar reflectivity, as if sunlight itself needed a permit from Lorna Whitcomb. One letter claimed my panels created glare that distracted drivers on the adjacent street. The street is a cul-de-sac with 4 houses and a speed limit of 15 miles per hour. She began doing patrols around the neighborhood perimeter twice a day, complete with a wide-brimmed sun hat, a clipboard that never left her hand, and a tactical poodle named Buttons that yapped at shadows and mailboxes. She claimed my electric meter offended the streetscape, which is HOA code for I do not like looking at it. She staged a Facebook crusade that went on for weeks, posting zoomed-in photos of my breaker panel, my meter, my solar inverter, all with captions like, "This is why we have rules, people, and one house ruins it for everyone." The comments section filled with neighbors arguing about property rights, aesthetic guidelines, and whether solar panels counted as architectural modifications. Some people defended me. Others, the ones who live in fear of Lorna and her clipboard, stayed silent. Last Tuesday, she escalated the situation to what I can only call DEFCON 1. A so-called compliance action team arrived at my door at 7 in the morning. The team consisted of 2 HOA board members who happened to be Lorna's cousins, both named Derek, which should tell you everything you need to know about the gene pool. They both looked like men who call themselves problem solvers into bathroom mirrors before breakfast. They knocked hard enough to rattle the frame, then left a door hanger on my knob that read power scheduled for disconnection due to non-payment of community fees, effective immediately. My cat, an orange tabby named Waffles, sat on the paper until it stopped crackling and developed what I would call humility. Wednesday morning arrived with humidity thick enough to chew and the promise of trouble hanging in the air like a storm cloud. The cousins returned around 11:30 with bolt cutters that still had the price tag on them, a pry bar, and the confidence of a TED talk speaker about to explain disruption. Here is what they did not know. The electric meter is the property of Rivers County Electric Cooperative, not mine, and certainly not theirs. The co-op had recently upgraded every meter in the service area with sealed tamper loops that set off a 120 decibel alarm, ping the utility dispatch center immediately with GPS coordinates, and trigger a friendly but very firm audio warning from a speaker module built into the housing. I had paired my porch speaker with the co-op's anti-tamper system after a technician mentioned during installation that it was compatible with home security systems. He showed me how to link them. The system even included a blinking red light that activated on contact. Very disco, he had said with a grin, very effective. When polo shirt number 1, the taller Derek, snipped the tamper seal with his bolt cutters, the pedestal barked like a submarine diving, a deep whooping alarm that echoed off the houses. The cutters bloomed with a bright electrical pop, nothing catastrophic, just enough voltage to make both men reevaluate every life choice that had led them to this exact moment. They landed flat on their backs in my rosemary bush, legs in the air, covered in leaves. Lorna stood on the sidewalk about 20 feet away, phone held high in landscape mode, narrating into her camera with the enthusiasm of a sports announcer calling a touchdown. She said lawful disconnection underway, authorized by community standards enforcement, as my living room lights cheerfully brightened on battery backup, completely unaffected by their amateur hour performance. Neighbors began peeking through blinds up and down the street. Mrs. Chen from 2 doors down came out onto her porch with a coffee mug. The teenagers across the way filmed on their phones. Rivers County Electric rolled up so fast you would think they had teleported directly from their dispatch office downtown. A lineman in a hard hat and reflective vest climbed out of the truck and surveyed the scene the way a librarian surveys a spilled slushie in the reference section, a mix of disappointment, resignation, and professional exhaustion. He radioed dispatch with the calm voice of someone who has seen this before and said confirmed tamper, alarm active, non-employee contact with energized equipment, request law enforcement response. 2 sheriff's deputies arrived within 5 minutes, lights flashing but no sirens, followed closely by a county investigator from the Critical Infrastructure Protection Unit, a division I did not even know existed until that moment. This man wore mirrored sunglasses, a polo shirt with a county badge embroidered on it, and carried the patience of granite worn smooth by a river. Lorna flapped her 3-ring binder at them like it was a holy text that could overturn physics. She said loudly, "We are authorized by Section 17-C of the Community Enforcement Code," but the investigator cut her off without even looking up from his clipboard. He said flatly, in a voice that had ended many arguments before this one, "You are not. You are not the utility provider. You are not law enforcement. You are not authorized to touch this equipment." He photographed the cut seal with a professional camera that had a flash, the scorched bolt cutters lying in the grass with their handles still warm, and the door hanger that threatened disconnection, which was still taped to my front door. The co-op lineman pointed to a large sticker on the pedestal, the kind you cannot miss unless you are deliberately trying to ignore reality. It read in bold red letters with a lightning bolt graphic, "Danger, utility property, no customer access, tampering is a felony." Lorna blinked at the sticker like she was meeting punctuation for the first time in her life, her mouth opening and closing without sound. The 2 cousins were handcuffed beside my mailbox while the investigator read off charges with the rhythm of a metronome, each word landing with the weight of a gavel. Criminal mischief in the first degree. Utility tampering under State Statute 4-7-3. Attempted theft of service. Conspiracy to commit a felony. Reckless endangerment. Lorna tried to pivot the narrative, sensing the situation slipping away from her like water through fingers. She said loudly, her voice climbing an octave with each word, "This was a community service action. We were protecting property values. We followed all proper procedures." Unfortunately for her, the Facebook Live video had been running the entire time, recording every word, every action, every moment of what she thought would be her triumphant enforcement of suburban order. The investigator asked to see her phone. She hesitated, clutching it to her chest like a life preserver, then handed it over with a visibly shaking hand. The video played back on the deputy's phone screen, complete with her voice saying clearly at timestamp 11:39, "We are cutting power now." He refused to comply. "This is what accountability looks like. like a confession recorded with emojis and filter effects attached. The utility company issued a tamper invoice on the spot, printed from a mobile device the lineman carried. The lineman said the amount out loud so everyone could hear. $4,200 for emergency response, equipment repair, investigative fees, and replacement of the security seal. Lorna went pale under her spray tan. Her hand went to her chest. Then came what I can only describe as the shocking surprise encore, the moment that turned this from a serious legal incident into neighborhood legend. When the deputies lifted the bolt cutters from the grass to bag them as evidence in a clear plastic bag, the little dye pack hidden inside the anti-tamper lock housing finally ruptured under the pressure change. Blue ink exploded everywhere in a burst that looked like a small firework, covering both cousins from chest to waist and splattering across Lorna's white capri pants and sandals. Their polo shirts looked like a SMAF had fought them in hand-to-hand combat and won decisively. The neighborhood kids on scooters down the block, about 6 of them ranging from 8 to 12 years old, actually applauded and cheered. My porch speaker chimed pleasantly with its default notification sound and said in that same calm robotic voice, "Have a safe and lawful afternoon." Lorna Whitcomb resigned from the HOA board that very evening, sending a mass email at 9 p.m. that cited in her resignation letter a need to focus on family, though everyone in the neighborhood knew she meant lawyers, legal bills, and damage control. The cousins took plea deals 2 weeks later in county court that included 200 hours of community service installing sandbags for the county's flood control unit, a program that operates year-round preparing for seasonal flooding, and a court-ordered mandate to stay 100 feet away from any utility box, meter, transformer, or junction point that hums, clicks, or displays warning labels. The new HOA president, a retired teacher named Margaret Sullivan with common sense and a law degree she never used, mailed me a certified apology letter with a $0 invoice labeled non-member fees, final notice, account closed. She even included a handwritten note on personal stationery that said, "We are so sorry for the confusion and the harassment. This should never have happened." Rivers County Electric added a second tamper-proof lock to my meter pedestal and installed a warning sticker the size of a placemat with updated language about felony prosecution, mandatory minimums, and civil liability. The criminal charges against Lorna and her cousins moved through the system over the next 8 weeks. Lorna hired an attorney who cost her $300 an hour and could not make the evidence disappear. The Facebook video was Exhibit A. The door hanger was Exhibit B. The testimony from the lineman and the investigator sealed it. In the end, Lorna was convicted of conspiracy to commit utility tampering and criminal mischief. The judge, a woman in her 60s who had probably seen every variation of suburban entitlement, read the sentence with the tone of someone who had heard enough excuses. Lorna was fined $3,500, sentenced to 100 hours of community service at the county records office, and placed on 2 years of probation with specific conditions that included anger management classes and a prohibition on serving on any HOA board during that time. When the judge finished reading and asked if she understood the terms, Lorna sat frozen in the courtroom gallery, mouth half open, staring at the bench like the words were in a language she did not speak, her attorney's hand on her shoulder the only thing keeping her upright.